Good morning. And I especially want to thank Beth Ann. I chose her to be my service leader for this service because I knew of her knowledge and how she had used the works of Victor Frankl as a counselor for all these years. And she certainly did not disappoint. Her readings really capture and add to the breadth of the philosophies of Victor Frankl. Recently, there's been a new work translated into English called Yes to Life, published by Beacon Press this spring. I quote Victor Frankl: "To say yes to life is not only meaningful in all circumstances, because life itself is, but also possible under all circumstances." This is how Victor Frankl ended a series of lectures in 1946. Say yes to life feels like a bumper sticker that you might see on a car in front of you. The cynic in me would see that and dismiss it as mere happy talk. We may ask, how can we be so positive when the world is so negative? The social justice warrior in me often screams, if you are not outraged, then you are not paying attention. The absurdity of positivism is perfectly parodied in the Monty Python film Life of Brian. People are being crucified and someone starts singing, "For life is quite absurd and death's the final world. Life's a laugh and death's a joke, it's true. You see, it's all a show. Keep 'em laughing as you go. Just remember that the last laugh is on you. And always look on the bright side of life. Do-do, 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 do-do. Always look on the bright side of life." But Frankl's words are worth heeding. He has credibility because he survived several Nazi death camps and work camps. He had managed to survive in the harshest conditions. Part of the reason he survived is the life he led prior to his arrest. March 26, 1905, he was born in Vienna to Jewish parents who named him Victor Emil Frankl. In his high school years, he attends public lectures on applied psychology, and he starts a correspondence with none other than Sigmund Freud. A manuscript that he sends to Freud while he's in high school is published in an international journal of psychology. By 1923, he's increasingly attracted to the Adlerian movement of individual society with its emphasis on community and social reform. In 1926, he presents a public lectures on congresses in Dusseldorf, Frankfurt, Berlin, and for the first time propounds the idea of meaning-centered approach to mental healing, using the term logotherapy based on the Greek word logos, for meaning. And this led to a split with Adler, and he becomes the leader of what is called the Third Viennese School of Psychotherapy. From the Victor Frankl website, it reads, "In logotherapy, existential analysis, LTEA, the search for meaning is identified as the primary motivational force in human beings. This is in contrast to Freud, who felt people were motivated by repressed sexual urges, and with Adler's, whose individual psychology focused on overcoming inferiority complex and claiming your power. From the Frankl Institute website, it says Frankl's approach is based on three philosophical and psychological concepts: freedom of will, will to meaning, and meaning in life. Freedom of will: humans are not fully subject to conditions, but are basically free to decide and capable of taking their stance towards internal and external conditions. Freedom is here defined as the space of shaping one's own life within the limits of given possibilities. In the will to meaning, human beings are not only free, but most importantly, they are free to something, namely to achieve goals and purposes. The search for meaning is the primary motivation in individuals. And logotherapy and existential analysis is based on the idea that meaning is an objective reality, as opposed to a mere illusion arising within the perceptual apparatus of the observer. It's something that can be found. Humans are called upon, on the grounds of their freedom and responsibility, to bring forth the possible best in themselves and in the world by perceiving and realizing the meaning of the moment in each and every situation. These are the philosophies that helped him survive when all was stripped away from him. He had positions at major hospitals, and he had started private practice, and they were all ended by the Nazi alienation of the society, the removal of Jews from positions of power. They even went as far to change his middle name from Emil to Israel on official Nazi documents. He still managed to become a director of a neurological department of a hospital that was a clinic for Jewish patients only. In spite of the danger to his own life, he sabotaged the Nazi procedures by making false diagnoses to prevent the euthanasia of mentally ill people. So basically, the Nazis wanted him to say who was mentally ill so that they would know who to kill. And he refused to do that. He had actually obtained a visa for immigration to America, but chose not to because he did not want to abandon his parents. In the midst of all this, he meets and marries Tilly Grosser, a nurse that he had been working with. And a short time later, the Nazis forced the couple to abort the child she was expecting. Victor and Tilly are arrested, and together with Frankl's parents are deported to the Terezin ghetto north of Prague. After about a half a year, his father dies. In 1944, Victor and Tilly and a 65-year-old mother are transported to the Auschwitz concentration camp. His mother is immediately murdered in the gas chamber. Tilly is moved to the Bergen-Belsen camp, and after a few days, Frankl is selected for transfer to a labor camp, brought to Kaufering and later Turkenheim, subsidiary camps of Dachau. In April 27, 1945, the camp is liberated by U.S. troops. Anxious to find out about the fate of his wife, he embarks on a journey, and within a span of a few days, he learns about the death of his wife, his mother, and his brother, who had been murdered at Auschwitz. His response was to do a series of lectures in which he explained his central thoughts on meaning, resilience, and the importance of embracing life, even in the face of great adversity. These lectures were subsequently published in German as Yes to Life in Spite of Everything. I will not grace you with my poor German pronunciations. The first English translation of this book was published this spring by Beacon Press, the Unitarian Universalist publishing house. It's a quick read and well worth it. I'll share some of the writings of that with you today. During all these struggles, Frankl attended to the psychological needs of those around him, whether in a prestigious hospital or in a concentration camp. He focused on the individual in front of him. One thing that gave him solace was a poem from Rabindranath Tagore, the East Indian Unitarian leader. The poem reads as follows: I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I woke and found that life was duty. I worked. Behold, duty was joy. He offers his interpretation in Yes to Life. So life is somehow duty, a single huge obligation. And there is certainly joy in life too, but it cannot be pursued, cannot be willed into being as joy. Rather, it must arise spontaneously. The question can no longer be, what can I expect from life? But now can only be, what does life expect from me? The question of the meaning of life is not asked in the right way. It is not we who are permitted to ask the meaning of life. It is life that asks us that question. Living itself means nothing other than being questioned. Our whole act of being is nothing more than responding to, of being responsible towards life. With this mental standpoint, nothing can scare us anymore. In this sense, we will not be scared of losing our lives if we are choosing to give our lives away, to give it to others. It is in the giving that life gains meaning. Frankl's perspective was to focus on the now. He had the dreams of surviving and publishing his works, and he dreamed those dreams to keep himself alive in the moment at the camp. And in the camps, he dealt with the people who were in front of him and helped them through all the suffering that was going on. We need to ask ourselves, what is our duty at this moment? What do I have the power to do? It might be only a word of comfort. Some situations have no words, but there is meaning in one's silent presence. At the point of death, life still has meaning. The dying person allows themselves to be cared for, and the caregiver has care that they need to give. Some family relationships are complex, and words too often get in the way and lead to arguments and old hurts. But at the point of death, this moment of silent togetherness can provide more meaning than all the scriptures and all the psychological journals. By doing what needs to be done, by answering the questions of life's demands, we make meaning. 2020 has been a rough year. January started with fires in Australia. I look back today to the day when we thought that was our greatest problem. Global warming was having immediate consequences. And there was also political unrest as the president was being impeached. Remember those hearings? Then the pandemic came, and we were confined to our homes, prevented from gathering in large groups. People have been dying in large numbers, over 170,000 so far. Yet many people are minimizing these deaths and spreading false medical information and saying that we don't need to take precautions. Only 73% of Americans say it's a good idea to wear a mask, and that allows all those other vectors to continue to spread this disease. When we need the post office for mail-in voting, we're seeing it becoming destroyed before our very eyes. Sorting machines being closed down, mailboxes being gathered from urban areas, and making it harder to vote. And that's all part of the racial disparity that has already been apparent in our health systems and in our justice systems. Oh, and by the way, the fire season has just started on the Amazon, and it's ahead of the pace of last year's deadly season. What does this moment require? The answer differs for each of us. Some of us have the medical skill to fight the virus directly, while others of us can help by following public health guidelines from credible sources. Few of us can fight forest fires, which are also starting in California, by the way, if any of you have those skills. But all of us can reduce the demand for Brazilian beef, which encourages the farmers there to burn down the rainforest so they have more space for cattle grazing. All of us can do what we can to reduce our environmental footprint on this earth. In this country, democracy is under attack. The ways of authoritarianism, the discrediting of the press, the dismantling of our institutions is being done before our very eyes. Racism must be undone within ourselves and in society. The need to act is imperative. None of us can solve every problem, but each of us can do what's within our power. Life is calling us. Let us today say yes to life in spite of everything. In the words of 19th century Unitarian minister Edward Everett Hale, I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something I can. Frankl recognizes that life has limitations. The choices we make in the face of those limitations gives our lives meaning. If we focus all we have lost or on losing, we miss the possibilities of this moment. Frankl writes, certainly our life, in terms of the biological, the physical, is transitory in nature. Nothing of it survives. And yet, how much of it remains? What remains of it, what can outlast us, is all that we have achieved in our existence. This continues to have an effect, transcending us and beyond us. He compares our lives to radioactive materials which diminish during their half-lives as they transform into other materials. He writes, it resembles radium. What we radiate into the world, the waves that emanate from our being, that is what will remain of us when our being itself has long passed away. I just have to recognize his genius. This is the first time that I've ever heard radioactive materials being used as a positive metaphor. That is the power of Frankl, to find the positive. So today, here we are in New Bern, North Carolina, or wherever you are watching this live stream or recording. Say yes to life in spite of everything. Accept the responsibility of the present moment. All one can do is radiate meaning from the time and the place in which one lives. We've got to take what we're given and figure out some way to give. Whatever, whenever, this much I know. There will be meaning wherever I go. Go in peace, go in love, and go in actions, making choices that matter and give your lives meaning. May we bless and be blessed.